Coming along here today, I hadn't realised where it was going. As always, I didn't do probably enough homework that I should have done. Came into the building. Absolutely amazing seeing all that COVID stuff sitting on the room upstairs. And that's what I used to do. Before I joined TRI, I spent 3.5 years in the NHS Scotland as our national CIO, managing Scotland's COVID response, the digital response for Scotland, developing their large data sets, their systems that were doing vaccinations, that were actually doing testing, etc. as well. It was all devolved, which I think a lot of people didn't quite realise, because there was a lot of posturing on television from Boris Johnson at the time that he was doing everything for the world, and up in Scotland, NHS Scotland did everything. So it was quite sobering seeing all that and bringing all that back as well, and if I'd done a bit more research, knowing I was coming here, I've got a really good algorithm which I developed and shared probably about a year ago, which was actually comparing the R number for COVID, which is the reproduction number, with the R number for a next generation malware attack. R number is basically how basically COVID or a virus replicates and how it infects 2 that becomes 4, that becomes 8. And we've actually got the same calculation that can actually help to start to estimate where the next cyber attack will be, which I guess leads into some of the AI stuff that we're actually doing as well, which is fine. And hopefully this starts to work as well. I changed the job title slightly just to make it a bit more fancy, and hopefully I can reuse it at a further conference, which is absolutely fine. We've all done it. Yeah, we've all been on. We've all gone on and logged an account and created it. We've all tried ChatGPT. We've all asked it questions. We've probably all made mistakes as well, and then regretted putting some things up. Has anybody asked ChatGPT how you get it to unlearn and forget things? It's a difficult thing to do. We might touch on that a bit as well today. Remember, when you're using these systems, they're incredibly powerful. They've developed massively, but at the same time, the hacktivists, the threat actors, have got access to all these tools as well. It's not just us that's got access to them, but they're everywhere. We're now seeing, ChatGPT, it's got version 4, we've got Google Bard as well, which is, and then we've got Meta, which in many ways probably was one of the first AIs that they used us as beta testers for. If anybody here's got a Facebook account, they've spent years tuning and learning from Facebook with the information we've been giving them all the time. We give them that service for free. Nobody actually sent them an invoice to say, beta testing is coming up to a point. Nobody asked us to performance manage what we were doing, but we've been in a world of AI for many years. It's just really that ChatGPT has actually just changed the way we do it. It's also fair to note as well, however, when we're talking about the 3 large ones sitting up there as well, when you think less than 12 months ago, one of the biggest ever cloud procurements that the Pentagon awarded was given to Microsoft and Google and AWS to build the next generation defense system for the US. Think about it. The biggest contracts go to Google, Amazon and Microsoft, who own most of the IP for what happens in artificial intelligence. I'm not saying Skynet will happen, but where are the guardrails around it? Who polices that? That's what I'd love to know. Who understands and says that the bias of their machine learning is good enough to drive forward security for the country? Perhaps they've given it to 3, and that's maybe what the guardrails are, but it's certainly lots of progress. You can see this, it's tailed off slightly. This is obviously when it was launched, everybody went absolutely mad. Everyone was using ChatGPT from either the OpenAI, etc., and then definitely leveled off a bit, which is what you'd expect. I think we're now in the world of where we're trying to see, can it be beneficial for business applications as well as for us wanting to actually create a quick PowerPoint or work out what we can do with an email. So definitely changing. Yep, we've got the flood of ideas. I did some research before doing this talk. I actually stopped finding new services, new websites, new APIs that were delivering things via AI because you just can't keep up with it. Every week there's dozens of services getting launched, and they're maturing. They're looking absolutely like the part. But at the same time, how do we know which websites to use? How do we know which services are actually the beneficial services? How do you know which ones are actually going to be real and which ones are not? We've seen a huge rise in deepfakes. And deepfakes do have a context for business. Deepfakes are not just all about my mum getting a phone call from the bank and it's a deepfake voice at the back of it. We've seen deepfake fraud, huge fraud with deepfakes. We've seen video fraud as well, people getting jobs through videos that have been done. So these things are actually starting to be real. attackers are using this. They're using it to code. We've done some research. They're using it to code. Now, I used to do a lot of coding. When I did coding, I would always try and create things using the best techniques I had, watch the libraries I was using. When you're using some of these modules to code, they're pulling down open source libraries. You don't actually know what these libraries are. In many ways, you could be creating secure code, and AI could actually be turning your secure code into vulnerable code that could be weaponized. And again, that's the dangerous thing we're in the world. I think it is a bit of yin and yang at the moment, and what we need to do is we need to see what we're going to do. What I'm going to talk about is Checkpoint's AI journey, what Checkpoint does, how Checkpoint's built AI into everything we do. And I think that's quite a novel way of getting into this. So, first of all, I'm going to start off with deep fakes, voice fakes, news fakes. I'm not going to show any videos today. There are some links there. I'm happy to share all the content and click on the links as much as you want. There's been some really great content, I think, shared up there recently around things like deep fakes. This guy up here, he doesn't exist. He looks like he exists. He's a good-looking guy. But, this video down here was manipulated. He exists, but he didn't actually give the press conference or the video. If you see the link that I'm sharing, it looks very, very realistic. And the same up there as well. It's, they're all examples of deep fakes. And the question I ask you is, how in your business work that you do, how do you actually know? How do you actually know who's at the end of the email, or who's at the end of the video, who's at the end of the call? You can't go on LinkedIn and check someone out. Their profiles are, maybe that's how you tell. They've got perfect profiles. They look perfect. Everything about them is perfect. So maybe that's what you do. This one up here is there's some interesting ones up here. There are face labs where you can actually go in and you can actually put images up, and it will tell you if the images are actually correct or not. So there are websites you can put them up, and it gives you a probability. I did it on mine the other day. It's quite interesting as well because it actually does match your characteristics with other images that it finds. So, you see yourself and then you see like 30% you've got a connection with, George Clooney or something, and you look and go, not really, but it's absolutely amazing what it does. So, do that. It's funny, however, we're actually looking at some of this content. By 2025, it's estimated that 90% of online content will be generated by AI. Only 10% will be generated by us. And that's where you start to really think about it as to whether, what is that content? Who's creating it? Where the bias is? We've all got a bias. I've got a bias with football clubs, with actors and actresses I don't know why I've got the bias, but these machine learning have got biases as well. Absolutely. I don't know if anybody's seen this campaign. Has anybody seen this the other day? It was only launched last week. Probably you don't watch I've got one of my team that stays in Florida and the whole time speaks to me about the presidential campaign, Trump and Biden. This was a fully AI-generated campaign for the Republicans about the threat of Joe Biden getting launched back into, or re-elected back into the presidential again. It's absolutely scary what they do and how realistic that is, and what they've done with the video, what they've got Joe Biden saying in the video. It's clearly not Joe Biden. It kind of looks like a slightly younger version of him, I guess, but this is the world we're in. They put it out, there's not one actor in there. I'd love to know what it cost as to why they did it, etc. And is it given the benefits? The Democrats have actually now done the opposite and put a video out. It'd be easy to do that with Donald Trump in it, wouldn't it? It'd be great things you could easily do with that, I expect. So this is it as well. The deep voice fakes. So we've done the images, we've done the videos as well. There's some huge websites out there, Lyrebird, Deep Voice, Google let you do it as well. If you've got any content up there on the internet, so you've maybe done a presentation or you've done a piece of blogging, something's gone up on YouTube, any threat actor could actually take the recording of your voice and actually convert that into a deep voice fake. There's been a huge number of campaigns, particularly in the US around this, where they've actually used voice fakes, and they've actually used voice fakes to leave voice messages on phones for people, particularly saying things like, I'm in trouble, I've lost my phone, if such and such, can you transfer some money, can you do things? And people do react, particularly in times where there's a problem, emergencies, etc. So it absolutely does happen. You've seen some things in there. There's some people that have now actually gone and patented on the web as well to say, this is my voice, I want to make my voice available. That's what some of the strike is that's going on at the moment with the scriptwriters. A lot of that is, Bruce Willis is one that, for example, has actually said, I'm not going to be able to star and do things in movies going forward, so he's actually given permission to actually clone his voice, to synthesize it and to use it. It's a different world, very much a changing world as to what we're in. Fake tweets, we all use tweets or X or whatever Elon's latest thing is. Fake news generators. There's websites you go into, and what you can actually do with these websites is you can actually give them accounts that you want it to learn. And you can actually say to them, I want to create tweets that mirror these individuals, these companies, whatever. And it learns, and you can tell it to iterate, it can get better, it can improve. And how do you actually know when it actually goes out, if it's correct or not? Could that affect the share price of businesses? Potentially it could. It could certainly, there was a lot of things around impacting things like elections, etc. Fake news around this. You've also got a fake tweet predictor as well. So you can generate your tweets up there, and then down here you can actually point tweets at it, and it will tell you, does it think the tweet's genuine, or has that been generated by AI, and is it fake? So, as I say, it's yin and yang. It's absolutely, I think, immersive at the moment, what's happening in the world of AI. So, what's up? So, we're really here to talk about businesses, however, business risk. Is it a business risk? I think absolutely it is. It doesn't matter if you're a small business, enterprise, public sector, what you are. AI absolutely has become a critical business risk. You'll manage it along with your cyber risk that you do normally within your governance, but it absolutely is there. So, have a look at some real world issues of deep fakes. We'll go into these in a bit of detail. First one, FBI, warning about fake remote workers. This got particularly prevalent just towards the end of COVID. There was a clamour to get good skills. We didn't, because I worked in the NHS, as I said, and we didn't always properly vet, because we had to bring in consultants, contractors, we had to get quick, we're happy to recruit from anywhere. I was recruiting from Europe, France, across in Dublin to do the work I was doing. We did some stuff in India as well. A huge campaign around their candidates, particularly candidates, would you believe, they're fake candidates, but they're actually coming from nation-state activity in North Korea. North Korea can actually get people into roles through having fake candidates that are set up with full LinkedIn profiles, videos. They've got the technology also to come on and do video interviews. If you've seen one or two of them, you can click on some of the links and you'll see them. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good, and they'll improve all the time as well. CEO impersonation, I've got a slide on that as well. 35 million is the biggest one to date that's happened from a CEO's voice being impersonated. And Europol are absolutely warning that this is going to become staple diet within businesses. You won't know what you're transacting with, you won't know what you're actually doing. So if we move on and look at the one I was going to talk about in Forbes. So, this is an example from Dubai. Amazing example of use of this technology. What they actually did was they impersonated the CEO or the director's voice from recordings he'd put up on talks and YouTubes, etc. That's what they did. They then got that to automatically send a voicemail to the CFO to say, we've just gone through an acquisition, we've acquired a company, and we need to get money transferred into this account to do it. At the same time, they followed it up using social engineering with an email from the CEO and also an email from the company's lawyer. So they actually, everything they did pointed towards, this is absolutely legitimate. They did it to a point, when they phoned the number back, they'd cloned the phone number. So phoned the phone number to check, left the voicemail, and then they got a generated phone message coming back saying, yes, it's all legit. I've just said, the lawyer's copied in, please do it. It was absolutely done to the letter. It's real. Given I was talking about epidemics upstairs, phishing epidemic is getting driven by AI. You have never seen anything like it. Business email compromise is huge. A business email compromise on average, we are talking about $4 or $5 million from business email compromise. Absolutely. 90% of cyber attacks are starting with email attacks. 90% of everything that's going on. 80% of organizations have reported getting successful phishing attacks. And if you have a look at the number of phishing websites out there, 250,000, 30% phishing emails are actually opened. And 1 in 99 of them are the phishing attack. It's a changing world. However, I don't know if like me, I went looking the other day to see what had happened to the Nigerian prince that used to send me all these wonderful emails. This is one that I pulled off, not from Nigeria, but quite clearly you do look at these emails, from the cousin of a Nigerian astronaut or a prince. They must be all holed up somewhere waiting to get a comeback, I suspect. You see these immediately, you know they're not correct. I'm surprised people did pay money for them, but the world of AI has changed this forever. So, I did this just on Friday. I asked ChatGPT, write me an email from the company to employees, tell them there's a stock options plan, and nudge them to open it. It's very realistic. I don't know if I could have written that as well. ChatGPT did it in seconds. It ticks all the boxes for me. There's some personal stuff, hope you're well. We've done well, recognition, incredible team, announcing the stock plan, information's in the attachment. Of course it's in the attachment, that's the whole point of it. We want you to open the attachment and infect your machine. That's exactly what we want to do. Review it carefully, anything, please get in touch. It's a great email. It's the sort of thing you'd want at your organisation. You'd want someone to write to say, you've been brilliant, here's some stock options. Absolutely. The frightening thing, however, about AI is, not that I can ask AI to write that. I can then say to AI, okay, that's really good, but can you make it better to improve the probability of somebody opening and clicking on the attachment? That's what it's about. At the end of the day, I want them to click on it. I want to infect them. So absolutely, it strengthens it. It makes it even better than it was. Take action today, it's saying. You don't want to miss out. Please find it. Encourage you to take time to open it. Vital information. You read this and you do not want to be the one that misses out on that opportunity. You open it up and you click. That's why the Nigerian prince is no longer, because these phishing emails are absolutely so good. Also, worryingly for me, they have become so good that in many ways, they start to bypass your email security you've got in place. And that's concerning as well. We're probably all Office 365 or Gmail. There's very few organisations I speak to now that run their own Exchange services locally. Some do, but they're in that direction. They don't want to do email security. This is the proliferation of Office 365 across the world. You can see the UK have highlighted about 300,000 organisations, enterprises, this is enterprise organisations, use Office 365. That attack surface, however, of Office 365 email is absolutely massive. And the attackers are actually using AI to find weaknesses and chinks within the email security, as per this article here, considering Office 365 crucial entry point for organisations. Studies showing that they're finding ways to bypass it. Now, what I'm not doing, because I'm a huge fan of Microsoft, I'm not saying Microsoft is less secure than it was. What I'm actually saying is the attackers are using AI to find more novel and clever ways to defeat it. And that's exactly what they're doing. They've been able to generate these emails that Microsoft thinks are genuine. It's exactly what's happening. And that's the scary thing with this. Here's some more stats around what we've actually seen from some of this research. And again, this is from live customers using 365. 20% of phishing emails have not been quarantined. What that means when they're not quarantined is they often go into things like your junk folder. And I don't know if you're like me, I regularly go in the junk folder just to check, has anything gone in that shouldn't have gone in? That's the dangerous emails that people click on. Absolutely. The more people that are using Office 365, the bigger this attack surface is getting happening. And AI is driving the way these attacks are happening. AI-powered Hacktivision. DDoS attacks. The DDoS attacks are no longer human-generated. They've AIs that are actually generating these bots. What does that mean? That means that the AI is learning what is working, what is successful. They'll normally start with some sort of UDP, so that's using things like ping attacks, sending packets to try and attack a network. If that's not successful, they may use on to actually hammering DNS to try and do it. Where it's successful, the AI, through command and control, is able to then see what is working And it's able to then change the attack to make it a multi-vector attack to bring in much more bots that are making the attack much more successful. They're using strong AI to attack businesses at the moment. This has been driven hugely by the geopolitical climate at the moment that we've seen within Ukraine and Russia. There's no doubt about that. And again, North Korea, Beijing are in this as well. So what I'm saying is there, it makes the track it makes it much more difficult to trace when it's changing. And that's the thing, it's not as easy to actually see it as a DDoS and where it's coming from. It's difficult to understand the vector that's there. Error rates go right down because it's AI delivered, fast and efficient. So that's what we're seeing from the AI side, from the attackers, the cyber criminals. So what can we do about it? The only way of defeating the AI threats that are out there is by preventative AI that combats it and actually comes about it by swatting back the same, if not more, what comes. It's the only way you can do it. So this is what Checkpoint likes to talk about. Everything has got to be actionable by AI. And I do mean everything. So that means it doesn't matter if you're using a mobile phone, a data center, cloud, a laptop, a tablet. It doesn't matter if you've got firewalls, SD-WAN. Everything needs to now be AI to defeat what we're actually seeing. AI that's got zero trust built into it. Checkpoint talks about 3 pillars: comprehensive, consolidated, and collaborative. And this is actually what we mean by this. And this is our approach to using AI to have better cyber maturity. First one has been comprehensive. And that's what I talked about. It's no longer good enough to just have strong EDR or strong firewalls or strong perimeter. In many ways, your mobile phone might be the perimeter. We're moving to a SASE world. Everything's connecting now to a secure service edge sitting within the cloud. So we're going to have less connecting back into data centers, less VPNs, less remote access. It'll all be accessing probably SaaS-based applications. It could be Workday, Salesforce, Oracle, etc. So that's what we're seeing. So what I'm saying here is we need to be able to prevent attacks across everything. Every bit of code, cloud, networks, users. The next bit is doing this in a consolidated way. Consolidated means that not just do we need to have preventative AI running across all these vectors, we need to do it whereby you can actually go in and you can actually start to understand from a risk-based approach what this means. Understand the risk context of the organization. Is it DDoS that's driving up risks? Is it the data that sits in the cloud? Is it the attacks you're getting at your perimeter? Is it attacks coming in through your SD-WAN? That's what you'd want to do in a consolidated way. And then do it in a collaborative way, whereby it's starting to share AI-powered threat intelligence across everything, integrating third parties as well. And that's very much what the approach should be about. Okay, I'm going to drive into a bit of detail around on what this actually means. So I did say it was threat prevention across every vector, and it has got to be everywhere, is actually what we're seeing. And it's got to be driven by an AI platform type approach. Yes, you can go out and, within the NHS, when I went in 3.5 years ago, and I got given the task of it was at that point transforming the NHS as a CIO, and then it became COVID. But the way I was looking to transform it was not to bring in lots of what I was calling single point best of breed products with the problems with integration, how you were going to try and interoperate them all, how they were going to share threat intelligence. The world is moving, as Gartner says, to now a platform-based world where it's actually looking to give you preventative security across everything you touch, from data center to cloud, to users, to SD-WAN and SASE. So what does this actually mean? It means we need to do it in a way whereby the threat intelligence is able to actually understand from every single sensor what's going on, and particularly from 0 days. It needs to understand what a threat is, not by looking at signatures. It needs to understand a threat by learning. It needs to understand if this is a threat, what this means, if it's 0 day, if it's malware. It needs to work in a way whereby it's got little or no false positives, so that it's been able to protect every single edge. Only AI-based security is going to be able to perform in that sort of a way. So how have Checkpoint done this? It's our 30th anniversary. I think it was a few months ago. So we've been in the firewall business for many years, is what you'll know us for. But however, Checkpoint learned very early The success to longevity, perhaps Polaroid should have learnt the same thing, Kodak. The success to longevity was being able to reinvent and change. And what Checkpoint started doing around 20 years ago was understanding how we could take threat intelligence we were seeing from the firewalls and actually start to push that into machine learning and huge data and analytics and AI engines so we could actually really understand what the context of that. And that's not just taking context from Checkpoint products, it's taking context from everything else as well. So this is what we talk about. We talk about Threat Intelligence Cloud. We call it Threat Cloud. It's actually what we talk about. It's a huge, large data repository. And you can see that it's got 70 plus AI and machine learning technologies that does it. 8 billion queries on a daily basis. And it protects everything that Checkpoint does and provides as products. Even down to things like APIs, Lambda functions, Kubernetes, Docker. Even when you're in that sexy world of cloud that I do prefer to talk about, Checkpoint actually protects all these services as well through a platform-based approach. This is what it looks like. Websites inspected. I don't even know what that number is. Is that 2 trillion? Look at it very quickly. It must be. It's all about the data. These are the engines that Checkpoint use AI to protect. Some of these engines are actually really important to talk about. It's not just things that are out up there. For example, zero phishing detection on mobiles, zero phishing protection on networks, anti-phishing engines that are all delivered by the same AI, enabling AI-based threat hunting, XDR AI-based services. That's what Checkpoint is invested in. Now, if you take Checkpoint products, you automatically get access to all this. Even if you just take a Checkpoint product that protects your Office 365, you get access to full 70 plus Threat Cloud AI engines in order to defeat the attackers are actually what they're doing. I think this is a great example of what this actually means. So, most of you will be aware of Log4j, Log4Shell. It was actually a vulnerability that goes back probably 10 years, which was actually the vulnerability on how you could actually potentially potentially infect Java-based systems. So that was actually where it came out. But then the Log4j vulnerability actually came in. Everybody was patching that because it was embedded in a lot of systems, a lot of services. What we didn't realize at the time, we realized it very quickly after the vulnerability came out, was that Checkpoint's AI Threat Cloud automatically blocked it. If you Checkpoint running in the cloud, if you're vulnerable at the back, it didn't actually matter because Checkpoint had quickly seen the risk and the threat coming from the Log4j vulnerability. It's through its contextual analytics, it had given it a score and realized that this was something that was critical and dangerous. So it wasn't looking for signatures because we hadn't seen it before, but it was able to understand from the context across laptops, endpoints, firewalls, cloud, everything else, this was actually an issue. The indicators were there. It very quickly trained up on the indicators, but from some suspicious requests coming 3 to 5%, it was able through that AI-based scoring to see it as a high risk and actually block it. Checkpoint was the only vendor that was able to actually do that. Others moved very quickly. They moved very quickly, they updated signatures, they did patches that actually fixed things. Checkpoint didn't have to patch. The AI actually found it and actually block it. A great example of, I think, of AI and actually use. So let's drill in a bit. Here's another example. This is a rat that Checkpoint found back in 2022. It was an executable first seen in Italy on one of our secure gateways or firewalls. That's what it was seen on. Again, it went through the secure gateway in Italy, through our threat intelligence AI, through the 70 decision engines that very quickly gave a verdict and said, this rat needs to be blocked because of the danger level. Within 2 seconds, it blocked it on mobiles, firewalls, clouds, endpoints, email. It was absolutely blocked. That's the power of offensive AI being able to actually see threats and do something in real life. And we know that's the case. We've got all the data graphed that actually shows that. So we actually then pushed these updates back to the gateways, so it was all absolutely blocked. What does this also mean if you go down and look at it further? It means that you can use AI. So this is the standard DNA gene and standard triple helix. What Checkpoint's AI is able to do, it's able to look at the DNA strands of malware and actually understand, is there anything that we've seen before that's got a similar DNA, not the same DNA, a similar DNA within the bytes of the strand as some we've seen before, that helps us give that contextual analysis of actually the level of that threat, which again is quite unique. So we can classify unknown malware genes very, very quickly on the basis of doing that. So as far as phishing, what does that mean with phishing? It's exactly the same. It means when it comes down to phishing, we can use some of these engines in that right-hand side from the Checkpoint's AI engine, looking at URL reputation engine, HTML inspection, brand impersonation in particular. And if a phishing email comes in with links in it, that means Checkpoint will analyze every link, it will analyze every field that's sitting there as well. If you type in a field, it will analyze the field for things like cross-scripting, injections, etc. And then it will actually ring it to say it's actually safe. It'll take it through the threat cloud, give it a rank, and then if it's a brand impersonation site, it will block it within seconds. If it's safe, you get on with your day. That's the guardrail around protecting against these phishing engines that we're actually seeing with all these indicators. Another example, preventing DNS attacks. So blocking command and control. The problem with command and control at the moment is it's changing. The attackers are using AI to change the way they do command and control. They're using AI to do what's called domain generation at the end using algorithms whereby they will generate thousands, tens of thousands of domains that look very similar to business domains that you would normally use. And they'll actually start to embed these into the control, into the CNC traffic, command and control traffic. That means it's very difficult to go in a firewall and block a domain because it just keeps creating more domains and it creates tunnels out as well. The only way you can actually defeat that type of an attack is by having AI sitting in there on your perimeter or your web application firewall, your firewall, that's able to understand these domains are being generated by AI. We're seeing dangerous traffic that are going out across this mesh of networks and actually block it to the destination command and control. A human SOC isn't going to be able to do that. They will just absolutely get bogged down in doing it. Only we're blocking network traffic. The same with looking at packages. I touched on this one earlier. We're seeing much more vulnerabilities being built into applications. Most of the big cyber attacks we see come from some sort of a vulnerability. Last year's CVEs alone are actually responsible for 22% of this year's cyber attacks, would you believe? That means they're not being patched. I don't know why people are not patching them, should be patching them, but however, what we're actually starting to see, we're starting to see AI pulling down from well-known repositories bits of code that suddenly become into the CI/CD pipeline. That's a development pipeline. They get deployed onto the cloud, they get deployed from staging, blah, 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 and suddenly we've actually developed applications that themselves are inherently vulnerable without us knowing it. The only way, again, of stopping that is by doing what we call shift-left AI, whereby we actually use AI. We won't stop them downloading the vulnerable package. We don't know it's vulnerable at that point, but we'll use AI within the CI/CD pipeline as we're developing and trying to deploy the code, so that AI is able to understand the level of threat and block anything before it actually gets deployed. So that's what we talk about preventative AI security. It's too late by the time it gets deployed to try and remediate. We want to stop it before it gets there as well. Obviously, what we do as well within our CNAPP product that I'd be happy to talk to you upstairs, which is our cloud product, is we've actually got a runtime AI based in there as well that actually will regularly spot anything that could be running on the cloud as well. Take this further into the data centers. This is now not about the cloud. Well, it's still some cloud, but it's hybrid mainly is what we're in at the moment. The AppSec stuff, that's what I was talking about with the WAF, that we can do with contextual AI, so next generation. More importantly, however, the world we're in is pushing into Kubernetes, into Docker, into containers, into Lambda functions. That's where we want to be as well. That needs to have runtime AI protection built into it as well, so that if there's any threats that sit within these containers, we're able to actually stop them. And it is stopping remediating, it's not just alerting. If you alert something back to your SIEM and your SOC, it's back to humans to then go and do something. Humans will become the weak point within the security operations within the next 24 months. Not because they're not capable, because of the deluge of data and false positives and what we're actually seeing. We need AI to be in the middle to be able to actually look after that. So, where's this going to take us in the following years? Exploits methods, they're going to make it really hard for us to actually see what's going on. Mass fakes are going to help with when I say they're going to help, they're going to push us into different types of attacks, different ways of getting attacks. AI is going to have a massive impact on cyber operations and how we do things. If you're running cyber operations at the moment or you're doing coding at the moment, you need to be thinking about automating everything you do. If there's anything you've got an operational process that has got a manual or a repetitive aspect to it, it now needs to be automated, because otherwise the AI cyber attackers are going to use that against you. Your ability to respond at speed and do some things at pace that's going to stop that are going to become a huge problem. So it is absolutely about automation and new space attacks. That's what we're talking about. So generative AI is a game changer. We need to be honest with that as well. At the same time as it provides business opportunities for us, it provides opportunities for the attackers to use the same thing. Remember what happened with Samsung when they decided to use generative AI to actually help with fixing some of their minutes templates for meetings. And before you know it, you actually get confidential company information sitting up there within the learning engines of Gen AI that Microsoft now owns. That is really what we're talking about. Will generative AI accelerate cyber offences? Well, absolutely. It's actually saying itself that it expects we'll see more attacks moving forward. I talked about automation, and I do want to stress this is what the future of security needs to be about. It's got to be delivered in such a way where everything we're touching is learning. And that's not just the human aspect. This has got to be the computerized, automated aspect of everything we do. It's got to be done in a simplified way so that we're reducing the aspect of making vulnerability errors, configuration errors, and it's got to leverage some sort of AI intelligence engine, for example, the Checkpoint Threat Cloud one, in order to sit at the middle of what we're doing. It's got to be able to understand the business risks in real time and apply context and posture to that. That's what it's got to be able to do. We're no longer in the world that we can rely on huge teams within things. So what does this mean about stopping the next preemptive security attack? Well, for me, we need to correlate these events. We're seeing them from everywhere. We need to do it in a way, however, where it's the context of what the big data that's coming in is going to overwhelm our defensive systems. We need to be able to easily visualize the attacks, what's coming in. I talked about the multi-vector DDoS attacks. We need to be able to really understand what's happening. If these domains are changing that they're coming in from, how do we understand and analyze where it's going? So we need to use behavioral analytics that actually learns as well. It learns from the context and actually starts to actually span out that. And we need to be able to use AI in order to do threat hunting so that we can more quickly and more readily understand what this means. So what's some of the challenges then in adopting AI? So the AI is only as good as the data that trains it. It's the same as your education at school. It's exactly the same. Some AI is trained better than others. Some has got more bias than others. There is a balance between data protection and privacy, however. I don't know about you in organizations. Checkpoint has got a large AI-based team. We do this as part of what we do. There's very few organizations I speak to have got AI teams with AI skills. There's very few who've actually got the right level of cyber skills. They rely a lot on outsourcing, on partners to come and do things. They've got some small teams with governance. They certainly don't have AI teams that are understanding what the context is. Some of the AI, it's easy to consume, easy to understand what the claims are, hard to actually evidence and prove where it's coming from, what it is, which is what I'm saying. What is good, what's actually bad. So, what does this actually mean? AI-driven threat prevention, stopping all cyber attacks. We've got Colonial Pipeline at the top there. Could AI have stopped the Colonial Pipeline attack? Absolutely. AI would have stopped the Colonial Pipeline attack. There is no doubt about that at all. AI would have seen that there was something wrong with the behaviour of that account that was used for remote access because it hadn't been used for a while. AI would have seen that access had come from a location that it had never come from before. AI would have very quickly seen it was trying to go, it was trying to do lateral movement across the network in the spaces. AI would have stopped it. There is absolutely no doubt about that at all. Kaseya, the other big one that's up there as well. So that's, Kaseya is the service that a lot of MSPs will use, a lot of organizations will use to help manage their infrastructure. Kaseya, again, supply chain attack of a way. It was malware infected into Kaseya that then was updated and actually pushed out to organizations. However, AI would have been very quickly able to see the command and control that was going on and actually stop that at source. There's no doubt about that in my mind at all. These organizations, unfortunately, were before the rise of preventative AI-based security. Okay, last slide, and then I will take maybe one or two questions. This is what Checkpoint's AI solution looks like. And I did talk about how it's got to be a unified solution that sits across every aspect of what you're trying to secure in your organization. Threat Cloud AI sits right in the middle of everything Checkpoint does. Everything is AI connected. This flows into email collaboration. This is SharePoint. This is Microsoft Teams. This is your GitHubs, as well as your Office 365, your Gmail. Anything remote access, SASE, SSE protects your endpoints, mobile protection. Right down here, your more traditional perimeters, gateways from small business up to clustered, hyper-clustered data centers, sharing the same threat intelligence with mobiles and endpoints. It's the same DNA that's running across everything. Into the clouds, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, single vendor cloud, shift left cloud, the same level of AI. Checkpoint also provide a single unified pane of glass as a portal that you can actually use that actually shows you the level of business risk around your entire business. One interface, easy to click on. And on that basis, I'm happy to take a few questions if we've got time.